were you up?
Until midnight.
Okay, but still. Well, I'm glad you didn't have 9 beers. If you did have 9 beers, I'd imagine that you had a bit of a hangover.
There's when you drink that amount not to feel crap, but you know that you had a drink the night before and probably didn't get enough sleep to sleep it off. That's the feeling that I've got.
If I drink too much, I have a bad night of sleep.
Oh,
I
you know
just
what?
like
I never shared the audio because we are officially live. Whoopsies.
Thanks, bud.
You're welcome. I mean,
Appreciate it.
All right, let me just host ourselves so we get one extra viewer. Yes, so we are Pixel Pints. We are breaking our own rules about responsible drinking, but you please drink responsibly. Every once in a while, is let yourself go, lay your hair down, go out and enjoy yourself. Especially if you had a job interview and got offered a new job, like I did yesterday. Get in.
Now we
why
know the story.
That's
Congratulations.
why I was celebrating. We are the only podcast, at least that I'm aware of, that talks about two things that we enjoy, which is good beer and video games. Already done the bit about drinking responsibly. Like and subscribe, ring bells, and follow us at pixel_pints on Twitter and Pixel Pints Pod on Instagram. Evan's here for some reason. I don't think there's any notable calendar-related time of year for you.
if I had the music rights, here would be the happy birthday song being queued up and just going, happy birthday to
I was
you.
looking through some stuff. I was meant to send this to people about 2 years ago.
That's
But
right.
I couldn't remember where I put them, and I was looking through some stuff, and I found them. So, in honor of it being Evan's birthday, here we go. Happy birthday!
Thank you. That actually reminds me. You can continue on with the opening pleasantries.
Mitch, how's things in LA? Whilst Evan goes off to fetch a vest, I'm assuming.
It's been hot. Oh yeah, I forgot. I don't do Celsius. It's if you got your phone ready for conversion rates, here we go. It's been 90 in the I think it was like 96 degrees Fahrenheit the other day, and so
That's just a level of heat that I do not want to put myself through unless I'm on holiday.
Well, fortunate enough, like my room I face the sunrise, and so the bulk of the heat that I get is actually not hitting my room, so therefore I just have to have a fan on, and it's pretty cool in here, so I don't have to use AC. But yeah, you do what you can. So yeah, it's been hot, and been playing a lot of games. Oh Jesus.
Evan's
21.
pretending he's Australian by the looks of things.
Now, dang it, fellas. Heck, if we were wearing football stuff, I would have go get my football jersey on.
Isn't it troubling that my face recognition works with these stupid glasses on?
Yeah.
I find that
scares
slightly
me.
concerning. Right. Evan, how are you? Birthday boy, you.
Yeah, let me tell you, 21. I never thought this day would come. It's my first beer ever.
What are you talking about?
Tastes
you
a bit,
you still get you don't get carded.
Not that bad.
Just I graduate university in next year, and I feel like I've
Evan, that's not
lived
possible.
a whole
Remember,
lifetime.
Remember, it's COVID. It's one more year, so you got one more year of college.
Oh shit, that's right. Well, anyways, here's the 21. Never thought the day would come. Got at least another I don't know how old people 15 more years of my life to live, maybe.
And
Actually, that would put me at 36.
Which puts you at
is
your
what I
midlife
am.
crisis.
Kind of looks like I'm in a midlife crisis. Yeah. I'll be 36 Tuesday. Oh, before we jump into the podcast proper, my friends and I were last time we hung out. We were playing this game where you look up what famous people share the same birthday with you, and whoever has the agreed upon best people,
Most famous.
or coolest people, or most famous people on the birthday wins. And my friends looked up someone. I didn't know the two people that he had handpicked from there. My other friend, two people I didn't know, and I looked up July 13th, Sir Patrick Stewart, and Harrison Ford. So I won that route. I know that Harrison Ford is Mitch's favorite actor. Number one, the trilogy, the only 3 Indiana Jones movies that they made.
Oh, not the one where
That he was
he
in?
now broke a bunch of bones on set. And now they have to wait several months because he's ancient.
He always breaks his bones, or at least recently, since he's like 80. He also crashed a World War II plane
yeah.
onto a golf course. Yeah.
During Star Wars shooting, I do remember that.
Yeah. Oh, is that how he broke his ankle? I think.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's crazy.
Happy birthday, Harrison Ford and Patrick Stewart. So
I'm looking up
good company.
my birthday now, and there's loads of celebrities on here who I'm thinking, who the hell are you? Alan Rickman.
There's a lot of that.
You know, for
Who's
me,
that?
Alan Rickman,
Alan Rickman.
the guy who played the greatest bad guy in movie history, Hans Gruber. So
Yes.
I don't know if I beat you or not.
I beat all
That's
of
a pretty
you.
good one.
I beat all of you in the morbid department because on my birthday the Titanic sank.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of celebrating life, it's more of a.
I mean, if the
Solemn.
Titanic didn't sank, we would have not gotten Leonardo DiCaprio. So I take full credit.
I think that's how those series of events are connected. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
The
way
math checks out.
no way he would have been in stardom if Titanic didn't come out. So if the Titanic didn't sink, no one would have thought of that movie.
I also share a birthday with Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, president of Mexico in 1876. So
He didn't
you.
He didn't get shot.
I don't know. I'm not looking that up. Right. Before we get to delve too deeply into this absolute garbage, Evan's birthday. Does anyone have interesting drinks they want to talk about? That'd be me then.
It's too early.
I'm drinking
Lucky
Saint.
It looks like a presidential seal on the very top.
Yeah, the presidential seal of Antonio Lopez.
I can't really see
Come
it.
on.
Push closer.
I think it's a beetle.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I like that.
It's too close.
I think it's meant to be a ladybird, which I don't know why we call them ladybirds and you call them ladybugs, because they're not a bird or a bug.
Wait,
They're
what?
useless trivia.
What do you mean? They are a bug.
No, they're not. They're bugs. True bugs are meant to have long piercing mouth parts. They're a beetle.
You know what's funny? I didn't know that, but I was 100% sure Mick Womble knew what he was talking about, so I just didn't say anything.
To be honest, interesting. That's not how we describe it to us as children when we were studying it too. I mean, we count a beetle as a bug as well. A bug is a very generalistic
it's just a
term.
It's a generic term, but in proper
insects,
entomological,
basically.
Yeah, and in entomology, a bug is a insect with long piercing mouth parts, and it's actually the nicest low alcohol beer that you can probably find.
I wonder if you get 9 beers in.
I wasn't drinking this yesterday. This is the antidote. So I can drink 0.5% unfiltered lager. This is absolutely brilliant stuff. I really like crisp lager with only a fraction of the alcohol.
Where is it manufactured? Is it in the States or is that in
Europe? I believe this is German.
Oh, okay.
And it is German. Yep.
All right. I'm going to put a note down. All right, cool. Lucky Saint. I've never seen it before. Is it this is a new one for you? You haven't had it before?
No, I've been drinking these on and off. This is now my kind of Sunday beer, or midweek beer,
Sure.
because I'm trying to cut back on days of the week. So if I fancy a drink, I can go low alcohol and pretend I'm drinking when I'm actually not. Being
It's actually,
responsible, following my own advice.
It's a very appropriate name too, because that beer is doing God's work, helping you out, and all these people that want to have a drink, but should probably hold off during the week or a Sunday.
Yeah, so my rule is no drinking on school nights. So there we go. That's it from me. Evan, what do you have?
I haven't opened it yet. I've actually shown this on the show before, but the lighting in my room was terrible at the time. This is the Craft Saurus. It's a black IPA. It's kind of this neat,
Woolly mammoth?
very simplistic. Yeah, it's a
It's a
the
weird
Craft
looking
Saurus,
woolly
but it's a
mammoth.
woolly mammoth. Yeah, for people just listening, it kind of almost looks like a block print that was kind of pressed onto paper. It's very, very. It looks like a kid drew it, to be honest with you. The coloring and the exaggerated.
Well, the exaggeration reminds me of origami paper.
Yeah. So this is a black IPA from Yoho Brewing, the same people that do the Blue Devil Aoni that I have every now and then. It's made by Karuizawa Beer, and I'm not going to open it yet, but we're not going to be doing like a mid-stream beer review, so I'll just like quickly say if it's good or not later in the show. Won't drag it out. But I'm also on my the tried and true Kirin Ichiban Shibori. It's just very drinkable, dry pilsner. Cheers.
Cheers. Slanger.
Cheers with water, because it's too dang early here and I have to work 10 minutes after we're done with the show, so I cannot drink alcohol.
Probably
these
wish you
glasses
had
are
a
terrible.
Lucky Saint.
Even I wouldn't drink low alcohol beer at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's a.
You've got
starts going
problems
downhill
if you're
from
doing
there.
that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
what we call way too damn early. If anything, I would. So people would know, like, if I would drink at this time in the morning, I'd be having a Bloody fucking Mary. That's what I'd be having, and I would have a beer chaser with it. So like that'd be okay. But it's the Bloody, and if you know where I'm from, which is like the Wisconsin area, our Bloody Marys are a meal. It's a. You got your celery, you got your pickle, you got your beef stick. Heck, sometimes if you go to certain restaurants, they actually like stack a burger on it. Like it's a
full
meal.
fried chicken. It's
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, but hella good with your Bloody Mary. And the best part is most of the bars in Wisconsin get Bloodies right. Like they get the spice right and make sure it's got flavor and it's not just this tomato pasty stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure every state says like they do Bloody Marys the best, but I don't know. Wisconsin in particular is known for their Bloody Marys, at least in
their
that
breakfast
area of the
Bloody
country.
Mary style is basically
And a chaser. It's
Yeah.
not a Wisconsin Bloody Mary if it doesn't have a beer chaser along with it.
exactly. There you go, beer lesson for everybody. I do not bring the
Okay, I don't
beverage,
know
but I
if I
do
should-
bring the education.
I don't know if I should worry about people from Wisconsin.
You
Bloody
should.
Marys.
No. There's a reason why we both boogied.
Right, Evan, would you like to introduce the topic before we go properly off the rails like we did last week?
Yeah. I'm going to put glasses on. I actually cannot read my
I
screen.
thought he was going to put
from
them
here.
over the sunglasses.
I actually have prescription sunglasses. I can't find them, so I have to wear my wife's Ray-Bans.
Wow,
So
you didn't have to admit that. I would have thought they were yours.
they're very nice Ray-Bans. I shouldn't have handed them like I just did. Actually, that was a bit.
She'll see
be
the
nice
show
to
and then
them.
she'll be like, "Dare you touch my sunglasses like that?"
She does not watch this show. Like zero interest.
She doesn't use us for her English education.
No, she uses me. That's why she married me. She reminds me every day. I'm just kidding. That's only half the reason she married me. So, even on podcast reload and the beer umvrit and that, I've always gone for evergreen topics just because I don't really like talking about industry stuff because I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's
And
never stopped me.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, you are our number one viewer, so it's not like if you say anything out of hand, you can correct yourself. Just so I'm constantly trying to think of like what kind of topic can I bring up, and it's usually just because of the game I'm playing. Like playing a game like, oh, this game has a bad mechanic in it, bad game mechanics or whatever, which McWomble had brought up or thought of last week. So I was playing the Breath of the Wild DLC, which is like it's like a $25 DLC pack. I believe the year it came out, one was in summer and the other one came out in winter. So it just got me thinking, like, been thinking about some of the DLCs that I've been playing over the years. I don't tend to play games when they come out. And for example, Control. And by the time I got around to purchasing Control, they just had the kind of all-in-one package up there. And I didn't know if the DLC was going to be good. It hadn't even been released when they were offering the DLC pack, but I bought it anyways. And I'm just thinking about price and DLC, and ultimately this conversation is going to be about, is DLC worth it?
Particularly story DLC. So we're not getting into other forms of expansions like multiplayer maps and things like that.
Right, yeah, just
because you would never have brought that up.
No, yeah. So I was playing Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and I was just like, this new DLC pack is not doing it for me.
Well, I'll give a quick shout out if I can for, not story DLC, but one DLC where I was like, that's actually worth it. So, Resident Evil 2 Remake, everyone knows I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil, but regardless, I thought it was amazing that the Resident Evil 2 Remake offered a DLC for 99 cents, which wasn't a big deal. I'm fine paying the dollar, to get the original sound effects from the original game into your remaked version. So like you'd get the original score that would play, so like the old soundtrack, and it included like the quality of it, it's like not remastered in any way, it's like the original,
exactly the same, huh?
Exactly the same. The menu screen did the exact same sounds for when you went through the menu, because like it's a very iconic for how the menu sound when you were going through your inventory. And then what was the last piece component? I think that was it. And I was like, for me, it was totally worth it. And that was actually the first time I actually bought something that wasn't story DLC, which I was really shocked by. But I was like, you know what? For a remake, that makes total sense, and I think people would actually buy that. And I wish.
Do you know if that comes in like some big DLC packet, or is that all kind of cut up?
They offered it two ways. They offered it as a one package deal where you could get the original. Oh, you also could get the original character designs in their block form. Okay. In game as well, but you could buy them as a combination together, or you could buy them separately, and they were all like $1 a piece, so it wasn't really expensive.
You've mentioned this before, Mitch, and you were highly praising what they did then. And one thing I like about what they did is they give you the option. So the thing about DLC that I like is, if you're going to have it, right, I'm going to have a bit of a rant for a second. What Evan is talking about, so Game of the Year editions, director's cuts, because this came up as well when you mentioned it in the Discord, Evan, about the Ghost of Tsushima director's cut, which is going to include the expansion. A lot of the time when I get annoyed about DLC is when you can clearly tell that someone's just cut a chunk out of the main game to sell it later.
Right.
Now that really winds me up, because it's almost as if the video games industry is training people not to buy games day one. There we go.
I think also, I agree with you, McWomble. And at the same time, I also think you can tell when it's just a cash grab Well, I mean, in the end, they want you to buy it. They do want the cash, but you can tell where, the creative goes above and beyond what the original intent was. So, like, you could, based off Sucker Punch's reputation and the way that Ghost of Tsushima did and how it was made, like, I could reasonably tell, being like, they didn't cut that out of the game. They probably made that and they wanted to do it, and because the game sold so well, they were more than happy to do it, and I'm more than happy to buy it because they did it so well already with the base game itself. And I think the difference is, and actually this kind of goes into our topic of story DLC. I think the difference of why story DLC I'm a lot more forgiving in regards to wanting and willing to purchase it is because usually a big, not the full component, but a big component for me of playing games is plot, story, and just offering new experiences and meeting new characters and diving into topics you can't dive into in other mediums because of the length of time you play a game compared to the time you can watch a movie or the time you can watch a TV show. So for me, if they do it well, it offers me an opportunity to go back a little bit more. My only hiccup sometimes with story DLC, though, is sometimes they wait too long because I'm not like Evan. I buy them day one, which I'm fine with.
Right.
I'm fine paying full price for the thing because I'm excited to play it and I really want to play it and the reviews were good, so I'm willing to buy it. But with that being said, sometimes it's like, oh, you don't get the DLC for 7 to 8 months later, and then I'm already playing something else, and then I'm like, oh, I got to relearn this game all over again. How much did I like it to do that? That's the only hit.
I was going to bring up timing. So timing of release of story DLC is really important because you could end up in a situation where a really key part of the story of the game, and this is, you're going to hear me say something bad about Mass Effect. The Leviathan DLC was released at wholly the wrong time.
Was
so
that Mass Effect 3?
3.
Was that the one where you got the new alien?
It's the no.
Was he the Promethean?
No, I know that's something else.
But I know that was DLC as well, wasn't it?
That was DLC,
which is bullshit.
Yeah. The other bit of DLC was Jessica Chobot. She was a DLC character in Mass Effect 3. Utterly pointless having her in the game. Yeah.
You had said the Leviathan DLC came out at the wrong time. What do you mean? Too late?
Yeah, it was too late. So the whole point about that in the plot was that you discovered the origins of the first Reaper.
Before they became mechanical creatures. Yeah.
I'd got so far into the story in the main game that going and playing that DLC element felt really jarring, and actually the plot of the story then didn't flow correctly. So the timing of when you put out story DLC and how it links to the main storyline is really important to get right. Otherwise you can end up in that experience where it can feel quite jarring. The opposite is Lair of the Shadow Broker. Because when you're playing through Mass Effect 2, as long as you don't get right to the end, you could play that at any point in that game and it just be still brilliant.
And honestly, that could have been a 2.5. Like the story itself, like you said, you could play it anywhere. But when I played it after I already beat the second game. So when I hopped into it, I basically just loaded up my save. It was right before the final battle, and then I just go do the DLC. So I kind of, in my mind, imagined that, like, I already beat the game. I finished the game. I had my crew, and everything happened. I played the Shadow Broker DLC, and I was like, oh, this is like a continuation. And it had, like, I remember Liara getting mad because I had sex with Jax, and like it was a big deal. And she's like, "You had sex with the so-and-so," because I romanced Liara in the first game, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that was coming. How'd she know? Like, I didn't know I was gonna come back and bite me." Non-sexual pun. So yeah, so I agree. It's yeah, it's the timing, but then it's also how it connects into the game. A lot of the time is like, maybe I'll just ask this to you guys, your preference. Do you guys prefer, because these things come out later, because they come out, they, well, except Mass Effect 3, which I somehow got the DLC because I think I pre-ordered it, so I got the the first Promethean. Wow, I think I pronounced it wrong.
Promethean.
Promethean, thank you.
Promethean, is it?
I said it.
The
I said
Reavers?
it the right way earlier, and I got it wrong. No, the Reavers and Prometheans are two different races. But I didn't even know that was DLC until I found out later, and I was like, wow, this is a very important like character to probably involve into the story that should have been with the game. But anyway, sidetrack. Do you prefer your story DLC to basically be like a continuation after the main plot? Because now games end where most of the time it's like, oh, you can continue traveling around the world. Congratulations on being the game. So then it's kind of like you can just hop into the next DLC, and then it's almost like you're actually continuing the plot of the game, that it wasn't really over yet.
Evan's going to talk about Blood and Wine, probably.
Actually, before I do that, I just want to I'm going to quickly. Wow, what an episode we're having today. I'm going to criticize Breath of the Wild. So we have Keith criticizing Mass Effect and me criticizing Breath of the Wild. I guess.
And I didn't. And I did not do anything bad to Resident Evil.
No, you didn't. Hey, on your 21st birthday, anything can happen. I guess that's the we're taking away from this. But just rewinding quickly back to the whole time thing, the Champions Ballad, which was the final DLC pack that came up with Breath of the Wild, came out in December of 2017, of the year that Breath of the Wild came out in March. And I had done all 120 shrines, and I played the DLC, and they have like 16 more shrines and then a boss. And at the end of that, you get that awesome horse motorcycle. It's like really, really cool. And it can like pretty much traverse anything. I'm like, I've played this game for 130 hours. I've done everything. You give me the coolest possible thing at the very end of the game. Like, I didn't use it because I had already played the game for 130 hours. So that's a timing issue thing where it would have been nice if you could have gotten that earlier, and then there was more of a, okay, I have 50 shrines left. Now I can use this kind of motorcycle to explore the map. But
is that
I
the DLC problem, or do you need help with your OCD and completing games to 100%?
Well, you say that, but the game came out in March, and then the DLC comes out in December. You'd assume that most people playing Breath of the Wild probably did all 120 shrines, no?
Unless they quit.
I wouldn't. I would assume that quite a lot of people did enough to mainline the critical path of the story, and then come back to it later when they can use the. There must be a kind of Evan meter at Nintendo. Yeah. So how much stuff can we put in that Evan will play for over 100 hours twice on two different game consoles?
Yeah. But yeah, that was annoying.
So technically you got 240 shrines because you did it all on the Wii U as well.
And I completed the DLC twice, except for the Trial of the Swords, which I had never done on the Wii U, and it ate away at me horribly, and I just did it yesterday, and I'm very, very happy. And it might be the last time I play that game, because I did everything. But going back, I'm sorry, Mitch, what was your question?
Oh, do you prefer...
Would you prefer that it's the DLC come out at the end and be like a continuation of the main story, or would it happen mid?
Do you like just a side story that's put into the game, but you have to go back and basically play the game to like get there?
Yeah, this is has kind of tied to a question I had, and the question I had was, is DLC simply a good reason to revisit a game, or does there need to be more? And for example, with Control, I beat Control, I got the Platinum Trophy, and they hadn't really told their audience like what the DLC was going to be, but they said that there's going to be 2 DLC packs. And there might have been a third one, but it was like some side mini game thing, I believe it was. It was like some sort of roguelite.
The third thing was just a free edition. So the DLC was only the two, the oldest house and
The Alan Wake
Alan Wake
experience or whatever that was. Yeah. So I beat the game and then I hadn't played it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's right, that DLC comes out. This is a great reason to play that game again. Like months after I had finished it. So, and you play it and it's like it's either it's good or bad or it's too short or whatever. And the DLC was like mediocre. Even the Alan Wake one was mediocre at best. But I did enjoy being able to walk away from the game and then a couple months later getting back into the game for just like one last crack at it, and it was nice to explore the game again. But I don't know, Mikwambo, how do you feel about that? Midway or later?
It entirely depends. Well, another thing that pisses me off about DLC though is this seeming new scheme where you tell people that it's coming, but you don't tell people what it is, but you want them to buy the season pass anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I did for Control. Luckily, it was like $25 at the time, but if that's day one and you're saying pay $70 plus 15 or whatever, and you don't even know what it is or how long it's going to be, is it going to be like a horde mode? Like you have no idea. Yeah, that sucks.
But the two examples that I think fit the question best is Sleeping Dogs. They came out with 2 sets of DLC, which were basically just 2 completely different elements within the same world, but had nothing to do with the main story whatsoever. There was the Nightmare DLC, and then there was the brilliant one that was basically a takeoff of, oh Christ, I can't remember the name of the Bruce Lee movie now. Where it's on the island.
Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, it was basically a takeoff of Enter the Dragon. And
really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. Right. It was a fighting tournament on one of the. Yeah. But it was there's like a fighting tournament. There's a shrine location you can go to in Sleeping Dogs, and so it took place there, and it was almost like a Mortal Kombat like competition where you all would like go on the stage and kung fu it. Yeah, it was great. It was great. I didn't
know Sleeping Dogs had DLC. That sounds awesome. That game's great, by the way. That's an underrated one. If you ever want to do an episode.
I'm so mad it got canceled. Well, I hated what they were doing with the sequel, anyways. But
well, I was going to use that as an example for a totally different topic.
Because fucking Ubisoft I'm sorry, not fucking Ubisoft. It's Ubisoft trying to make live services happen. Stop it. Assassin's Creed.
I need to put that in the topics ideas. The other one, I'll just check my notes. Oh yeah, more Mass Effect. I thought I had another game on there, but the Citadel DLC. So
that was good, yeah, because it was like the send off.
And it didn't take itself too seriously. It knew that it happened. You knew that it happened after the end of the game. It was always coming out, and it was meant to be a send-off. So it was the game setting itself up. So if it happened afterwards, it was irrelevant. So
it was like a dream sequence if it happened at the end, basically.
So it's basically the opposite of the Leviathan one, where they got the timing totally wrong when they released that. I think there was problems at the time about getting some of the elements of the game ready for launch, and they backburnered some of the DLC stuff. So I think Leviathan was meant to come out sooner, but it didn't. Whereas they took their time with the Citadel DLC, and again, it didn't matter when they released it because it was at the end of the game. I think overall, I've become used to DLC, but I do find it somewhat objectionable. Because people are coming up with strategies now, for better or worse, for having that tail of sales. And going back to Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, I probably won't buy it. I've moved on from that now. So whilst you can pick up the What's the name of the other island, Evan?
Ikishima.
Ikishima.
Yeah, they call it Iki Island, but like Shima just means island. That's why it's tagged onto the end of everything. So I don't Iki Island, Ikishima. I'm surprised they didn't call it Shima because it's Tsushima, but whatever.
But I've, like Mitch was saying earlier, I've moved on from that. I'm not going to go back and replay the main game or to pay for just that element. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to ask you guys about is how do we feel about pricing of some of these? Because obviously Game Pass is amazing, but it's just the subscription for the main game.
Check.
Just kidding. You don't
if you want to buy any DLC, you've got to pay full price for that, which I think is a reasonable trade-off because you've got that library there. But is DLC from a 8-year-old game really worth $15.99 now? I don't think so. Will I be paying however much it costs for the DLC for Streets of Rage 4? You could bet your ass I will, because that game's amazing.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, how much does the game mean to you? Is if the value's there, you might spend more than you're willing to with other series. But since I'm kind of slightly a cheap bastard, and I just kind of, unless it's Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us 2 Part 2, those games, it's like, all right, I do need to play this game day one. Everything else, I'm just fine with waiting for. And by the time I get around to it, usually that game that was $60 plus an extra 10 or 15 for the DLC has now become $30 all in one packet, like how I bought The Witcher 3. I think I spent $20 and I got Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine with it. So in terms of pricing, at regular retail price plus $15 or however much it is, I would never pay that much money. And I would just wait. Like even like Life is Strange, I was like, this game looks good. I'm going to wait till all 5 episodes are out, and then I'm going to buy the package discount.
That's slightly different though, because I don't class episodic games.
That is not DLC.
Yeah,
but just the fact that I will wait for these things. So for me, it's not that much of an issue. I'll just wait till I can get it the entire thing as a discount. But I don't know, Mitch. How do you feel about it?
So specifically to your question, Keith, you were mentioning the Ghost of Tsushima model of what they're going for. The difference is, usually I was like, okay, I wouldn't do it, but the reason why I'm more open to doing it is because, hey, I don't have a PS5 yet. So like I'm fine going with, because I already have the base game now. It's only going to cost me what was it? $30? $20 to upgrade. So $20 for a better edition of the game I have plus DLC, which then I'll probably play it again because I want to see how good it looks, and because I loved how I enjoy it. It was my favorite game to play of 2020. So even though it was our game of the year. Even though The Last of Us 2 is probably one of the coolest, best experiences in games I've ever experienced, but Ghost of Tsushima.
If Tomb Raiders is listening, he's still shaking his head at that one. I know he was not a happy man.
But I know that Ghost of Tsushima was still my favorite game to play. That I feel like as soon as I hop in, I will just want to play, because then I also will want to play the DLC. So I guess in that aspect, like because it's something like $20, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so you're a bit more like you're willing to pay a bit more than maybe Keith or I are, because I think $20 is way too much, and we don't even know how long that Ikishima DLC is.
But even
that was going to be my next point.
But that counteraction really quick before you hop on, Keith. It's not just the island though. You get new enemies, you get new weapon types, you get new upgrades. There's all of that
like sprinkling stuff. I found little value in that. Like, it's really hard for me to like. I know it's all intangible, but I need, like, you say story, right? It's like, all right, I can get my head around that. But if it's like, oh, you can pet the dog now, and also you can like have your house and like decorate it with your armor, like all these like little additions. I'm like, to me that doesn't add up to money per se.
I think it does in the aspect of, well, what if these things are, the example I think of is, what if these new enemy types are at the new island, but then when you go to the new island, they invade your island. And then so all of a sudden you start having new combinations of enemy types that you didn't get when you played the game originally, which changes up your strategy when you're trying to take them out, which I think offers a new way to play. So it changes the experience.
Yeah. There's also a new sword stance in the game, which probably has to do with defeating the new enemies.
Yeah. So I think because of that, on top of you're getting an upgrade to a newer version of the game, the $20 is justified for me. Usually I actually am pretty much, I don't really buy DLC very often, to be truthfully honest. I think I don't remember the last time I actually bought DLC separately, except for like that Resident Evil extra bonus thing, but that wasn't even story DLC. So go ahead, Keith.
It's 99 cents. Yeah.
I'm just glad we're not like big fans of fighting games, because we would get gouged for DLC.
Dude, these companies.
Mortal Kombat, man.
Dead or Alive.
Mortal Kombat would kill you.
Dead or Alive? Are you kidding me?
Oh,
man.
Yeah,
they were selling depreciable like fatality packets or something crazy. It was like you get 10 free fatalities that you can execute with a single button. 10 times. That's it. That is some of the dirtiest DLC I've ever heard of. That is horrible. But Keith, you had a question about the $20 not being worth it. Type of thing we don't know.
I know it's all subjective, and people's opinion on value is going to differ, but obviously there's a proximity thing that will inflate the cost. So Ghost of Tsushima, that only came out last year, quite a recent game, so you potentially want to keep that price point slightly higher than you might do if it was an older game.
I bought The Witcher 3 DLC like 4 years after it came out, so of course it's going to be cheaper. Yeah, not a year later or anything.
It's a weird thing that I found about sales on Xbox is they will heavily discount the main game, but DLC very, very rarely gets discounted.
One of these.
So you can pick up. I'm trying to think of a good example now. So BioShock Infinite, you could pick that up for 75% off, but if you want any of the DLC that comes along with it, you've got to pay full price for it. So that's something I find a bit odd. And it's not just Xbox. I've seen the same happen on PSN as well.
Yeah.
But before I purchase something, I either need to be invested in the game already, like I was with Mass Effect. So I bought all the collector's editions. So you got that day one DLC that they were giving you, and then I bought all the bespoke stuff they put out as well. But for something like BioShock, I loved BioShock. I thought it was a great game. Did I go back and purchase the Minerva's Den DLC? No, because I heard it was quite short, and it might be absolutely brilliant. But at the time, did I want to pay? I think that was $15.99 at the time for another, say, 2-3 hours of game. So that's where I'd like to be able to say, if I'm investing money, like I will do in the Mr. X DLC for Streets of Rage 4, I know I'm going to play that game multiple times. So however much money it's going to cost me, I know I've got that length of time in my head on number of playthroughs to say, yes, definitely worth value. Whereas for something like the Ikishima DLC, was okay, it might be 20 hours, it might be 5 hours. I don't know.
I think
if it was 20 hours, it's probably worth the money. If it's 5 hours, probably not.
I think the other component for me that really makes, like, obviously story DLC, you play for the story, but I also look for opportunities to change up the gameplay, offer a new experience that I didn't get with the main game. Because if And I know some games just feel great and can play really well. Just like, and you're like, oh yeah, I could play this loop all day long. But sometimes I'm just like, after that 40 hours, I was done. And I really didn't need, I really don't need this
burnout.
game. I don't need this gameplay loop again.
Death Stranding Director's Cut. No, thank you. I played 75 hours of that game. I am never going back.
I will say though, if you've never played Death Stranding, that's probably the game you should play.
Oh, totally.
Because
like,
I think that
if you can jump in not sight unseen, but like you get everything now plus all the extra stuff.
But I think the extra stuff makes the game more of a game. If that makes sense.
You got catapults now.
Yeah,
one thing I would say,
shoot one. I was looking at some of the things they got in that director's cut. I was like, kind of wish I got that when I was playing it.
How are there not ramps to jump off of? How is that not a thing in the game before? I saw that. I'm like, oh, of course. How is that not in the game?
So just to let people know, I've switched up to the hard stuff. I'm now drinking Hobgoblin Gold from Witchwood Brewery. Lovely beer.
Good beer. Yeah.
They're after me Lucky Charms.
So one thing, stupid me for doing this.
Leprechaun, my bad.
I bought the Christ, I can't remember the name of the DLC for Horizon Zero Dawn. Evan,
Frozen Wilds.
The Frozen Wilds.
Thanks, Mitch. And I started playing it, never finished it. And like you were saying, so it expands on the story and does what Mitch was just talking about in terms of changes up gameplay. And I couldn't give you a good enough reason for why I didn't complete it.
Unfortunately, I never picked it up. And that was the thing of and here's the example of, it was far too late. And I get it, because at the same time they're always like autumn, I believe. They're always like, people are gonna get mad if we release this like 4 months after the game releases, but then it's like, if you wait after 6 months, you're kind of lost your window.
Yeah,
but then it all gets wrapped up into Game of the Year or Director's Cut edition, and the thing that irks me about this whole discussion is there's people behind the scenes planning all of this stuff. So that we'll get the initial sales, and then 3 months later we'll announce the DLC, and 2 months after that we'll release it, and then 2 months after that we'll say that if there's more coming and what that is, and then 12 to 15 months later we'll release the director's cut and we'll pick up all the sales from people who haven't bought it previously. And I was just thinking, it's just irks me somewhat.
Well, sometimes and for some of them, like, I bet Horizon Zero Dawn originally was like, if it sells well, we'll do a DLC, but that's not the original plan. And so sometimes that's why the window
sometimes we don't know, do we?
Yeah,
we don't know.
We don't know. So sometimes that might be why the window
for something like that.
Well, I mean, they prepare themselves for like, if we're going to make DLC, this is our window. But if something's like, I guess my example is they have to wait for the initial sales numbers, and that can take a month or so, and that's a month of lost time because they're not going to make them start making the DLC if they're not going to make the DLC. So
I disagree with you. I see where you're coming from, because you don't want to spend money and time on creating something that you may not want to sell because people haven't bought it. But with the way that games are developed, I'm betting that people are planning at the start to say, here's how long it's going to take us to create the game in its totality, including all the DLC, and then here's the DLC elements that we're going to take out and sell later.
Well, they have to plan it to some extent. There's no way that they can release
I think
Horizon in March and then the DLC in autumn. There's no way.
Well, I think they have the concept in mind of being like, if we do DLC, this is what tentatively we will do. And there is a time frame where the developers are on break once the game gets released. So there is time off during that time as well, that there could be a smaller team working on the R&D of it by seeing, it's selling great. Okay, greenlit on the DLC. Let's go right away. And it's like 5 days after they're done with the project. But they really don't start production on it until maybe like a month in later.
Well, that makes more sense for something like the Control DLC and the Ghost of Tsushima DLC that came out almost a year after the game came out. So it's like, okay, they probably had some ideas. It sold well, although I don't know about Control. But and then they do their production phase. They do it in they do the DLC planning in pre-production, but then they do the production phase.
Control
like,
didn't
slightly
actually
later.
sell particularly well.
No, that's something that I did hear.
I mean,
so
for
I don't know
well,
about
for
the
how much
DLC
it's so in regards to like profit, it actually sold very well in regards to like the production costs equal the amount of sales it did receive. It may have been underwhelming in regards to like the sales based off the type of game it is, but for how low the production cost was, it actually made a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
Also, with the publisher that doesn't, was it 505 Games, which is not a huge publishing company in regards to, that's their biggest game they've ever published from a studio. So like, it's a good success for them.
Just trying. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna pose a question and see if we can kind of wrap this up with highlighting maybe some, to end it on a positive note, highlighting maybe some noteworthy DLC, DLC that actually is a kind of standout. But on the other end of that, thinking about Control DLC and the Breath of the Wild DLC, what's the ratio to good versus bad DLC? Because I am kind of on the end of DLC ultimately being disappointing. Like I did say that I liked going back to Control because it gave me a reason to go back to that world. Like I really loved it, but like you platinum that game, there's nothing else to do. Like you're done, and then okay, there's a reason for me to get back in the game. But then I do the DLC. I'm like, that was okay. Yeah, it was worth the money because I bought it in a giant pack. But if I had just bought the Control game and then saw those reviews for the DLC later, I wouldn't have purchased it, but I had owned it, so I played it, type of thing. So, how do you ultimately come out on DLC? Like, bad, good? What do you think? Worth it? Not worth it?
It's one of these things. It will, again, going back to the subjective nature of everyone's personal views on value. It's going to, from my perspective, it absolutely depends on if it's been planned properly. So for something like the Frozen Wilds, it was obvious that was planned, that we will release it subject to it achieving a certain number of sales, and that's why it was such good quality. Obviously, I think what's taken the time for the Mr. X DLC to come out is the studio was really surprised at how well Streets of Rage 4 sold. So they didn't actually, they probably had the idea of, yeah, we could do the same game with the different characters that we've put in it, but it's taken them basically a year to release the DLC.
For a studio that small with a smaller game like that makes sense that they wouldn't have planned all of this shit unless the game sold well.
Yeah, but so the bad example that I would say on DLC is something like Borderlands, because there's so fucking much of it, and if you buy that bespokely, it's really expensive, and if you pay the $100 up front for the game plus all the season pass that's included, yes, you do get a lot of it, but a lot of it just seems a bit meaningless. It is just, here's another area to go and shoot shit. So yeah, there's good and there's bad across, as with everything. Let's talk in more generalities.
There's good and bad. There's good and bad with everything. Yeah. Wiser words were never spoken.
Yeah, I think where it feels shoehorned in, or where the people overpricing DLC, I think is or having so much of it that you actually think, no, you are actually taking the piss now. You want me to buy another story pack or another character pack or whatever it is, so you can play the same game slightly differently.
That's actually a good point. When you're talking about how good or bad a DLC is, it does have to do with if you're disappointed in it, your level of disappointment is entirely connected to how much money it cost. Because if it didn't cost a lot of money, you'd be like, all right, it was short, it was okay, I'm fine. But if you ended up paying like $10 and you were disappointed, that's when you start getting mad. $15, $20, that's when you start railing against the game. So yeah, the whole subjectivity of that does come into play there. Yeah,
I think,
that's a good point.
the example, the Borderlands 2, I waited and got the Game of the Year edition that had all of the DLC included in it. If I'd paid full price for that, and I think it was 100 odd quid, I would have been so pissed off. Okay, you get a very lengthy experience, but there's nothing really new.
Like you're just playing.
Okay, Tiny Tina's DLC was probably the most memorable. But even then, there's only so much Borderlands that I can take.
It's all very samey after a while.
Mitch, what's your take on the situation?
I just think most of it's crap. Let's be honest.
I kind of lean in that direction too, Mitch.
Yeah,
a lot of it's disappointing.
Most of it's disappointing. Am I happy we have it? Yes, because I think it's like the Nintendo eShop. There's a lot of crap there, but there's some golden nuggets there every now and then, and the golden nuggets are worth it. So I'd rather have a bunch of crap with a golden nugget hidden, or my golden ticket. Why don't we do Willy Wonka? I got a bunch of chocolate bars, and I got a few golden tickets in there. And I'm happy I can at least try to get one golden ticket compared to not getting no golden ticket at all.
If Matt's watching this back, he probably would have preferred you to stick with the nuggets.
That's pure coincidence that I'm coughing, by the way.
He's allergic to his own birthday.
Sorry. Oh, God.
I mean, Japan's on lockdown, Evan. Are you sure it's not COVID?
Dude, holding the Olympics during a state of an emergency? The fuck is going on?
And no crowds. It's going to be really weird.
Wow, money and greed ain't it a thing?
Well, apparently, I heard that they're gonna there's no way they couldn't cancel because they would have to pay so much in fines. It would just be the government would go ballistic. But in the end,
going back to you, Mitch, I do agree that I'd rather have it than not, because every now and then you do get really good DLC, and then that stuff is worth paying for. And I just hope in the future, I'm entirely cynical, so I'm kind of leaning towards McMomble, where it's just going to be this world of players getting duped into spending money for $100 Borderlands DLC. But I hope that not eventually, just you'll get developers that care about their games enough to make good DLC and not just something they can tack on for extra money. So I don't know. I thought one way to wrap this up. Oh, go ahead, Mitch. I know you have a hard out, but
no, it's okay. No, we still got 10 minutes. But to be honest, we're at the point where story DLC's been out in the market for so long, so we know who plays and who doesn't in regards to actually who's for the cash grab. Ubisoft does the cash grab because it's just the same thing. Where it's like, oh, we're gonna throw a little story in there, but we're really just trying to just add a little world and just go throw you in there. Or it's like EA. It's like, yeah, it's mainly gonna be just a tiny bit of this, and you just go in there and you pay full price for it. Where it's like, you look at something like, I will say Breath of the Wild's DLC makes the story exist compared to not existed at all.
It's actually very disappointing. They make you think they're going to add a bunch of stuff, and it's so disappointing. Yeah,
exactly. But it still actually exists compared to not existing at all. So
they make it exist a little more than it does, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but at least yeah, and yes, that's the other part is it's just like the game itself, DLC overselling of what kind of experience it's going to be. consumer beware. Like you know what people got your back in regards to actually making an experience that's going to be worth your while and worth your dollars. So that's why we're all like, yeah, for the most part, we're willing to buy the Ghost of Tsushima DLC because, you know, like we trust that they can make something out of it more than just a cash grab, because, you know, they added all these features additional later on, and they've been good features that added to the quality of life of the game, and they did a multiplayer that just was for free of all things. And yeah, was it the best multiplayer? No, but it was still a lot of fun to play with other people. So like,
I played that for like 15 hours.
Yeah, so I mean,
So,
and it was
there's
free.
that.
That was the point. So yeah, I think we all know who's in the best interest for the story DLC or just DLC in general. So we're at a point right now where if it was like early in the process, yeah, it would be a lot more of a who's in it, who's actually going to make good story DLC. We don't know.
Like I said earlier, DLC is not going anywhere.
No.
I find.
Well, actually, do you think it will fade because of the battle passes and the and more about it's more about cosmetics,
Recurrent user spending.
Yeah,
Or look at the new state of play. They announced, or maybe not announced, but Tribes of Midgar Season 1. I don't even know the name of this game. You're talking about Season 1 already?
And can we stop naming games like TV shows? Come on now. Like I got TV show seasons to try to keep in my brain. Last thing I want to keep is game seasons in my brain.
Season 1, yeah. You talking about a show or what?
What season are we on? Fortnite season 5? Like, I stopped watching that show after season 1.
Yeah, I think Apex Legends is on season 9 now.
Jesus, that's in syndication, my man. It's making money for life.
It's a long show. It's pretty successful.
The thing about DLC is that, again, the irksomeness of it is it's now part of the apologists framework for games are too expensive to make, so we need to have DLC.
When you're making record profits. You hear that, McWomble? Record profits.
If you can make 1.6 billion just off FIFA, games aren't too expensive to make.
No, that's an excuse they
fucking
make.
Cards.
So yeah, it's part of the apologists framework. Yes, there's going. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think it's going to be part of the publisher handbook for a long time yet.
Do you think it'll be way more or less common?
That's potentially where it's going to go, because more and more people are steering away from narrative-heavy, story-driven games.
I mean, just think about it now. Just look at Assassin's Creed, that they talk about it's going to be this online built-in multiple locations. Like, I don't imagine a story DLC coming out of that, because it's probably going to be a service.
Yeah. So that's where Ubisoft are going with it. But if you take what Sony's first party is doing, can I see there being DLC potentially for Ratchet and Clank? Possibly. Is there going to be more DLC for other Insomniac titles like Spider-Man? Are they going to do more stuff with Miles Morales? Is he going to get a full-blown game plus some minor story DLC? Probably. So I think
it's all likely, right? We all agree.
Yeah. So it's one of these things now that's there. It's a weapon in the arsenal, and as long as it keeps selling, people will keep doing it. But what I'd like to see is more thought given to it.
Yeah. I think, which brings us to just quickly wrapping this up with some positivity, as we're known for on this show. Good DLC, and this is very obvious in my end because I've talked about it before, but I think when your story DLC is better than the actual story in your main game, that's when you know you've actually done it right. And Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine for The Witcher 3. Both of those stories are amazing. They are so good. I know Mitch is currently he's got his head in his hands. He's
It's
currently
your
has
birthday.
P-
It's your birthday. I can't say
post-traumatic
anything.
stress disorder from
can't say
crashes
anything.
from The Witcher 3. I totally understand that. That game is a janky mess. However, specifically speaking about the story element of the DLC, and Hearts of Stone is a great story, and it has so many interesting side quests. It does a lot with like, oh, the Witcher doesn't necessarily have to swing his sword to solve all problems. Let's just put it as a side quest where you go to a wedding. And there's like stuff to do at the wedding, and you have this great time, and it ends with you're on this boat in the middle of the lake with this girl. Of course, you have sex with her. It's the way The Witcher goes. But and then Blood and Wine is a great bookend to The Witcher's. What's his name? Jesus Christ. Geralt. I was going to say Gareth of Rivia.
Gareth.
Actually, I'm not even.
I was gonna say don't worry, people. He's got a built-in condom. He can't have children, so.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That is not as bad as calling Dutch Duke. By the way, I'll never live that down. But yeah, like it's actually a bookend on Geralt's entire life. Like, you get a vineyard, you settle down with Yennefer. It's a fucking amazing DLC, and I would love to see. I don't even know if any DLC can top that because it's actually better than the actual main game. But
I got one
DLC packet that is amazing. All right,
before
ahead,
Mitch
sir.
Goes in, I just want to say that you find out in the Thronebreaker Witcher Tales why Geralt is called Geralt of Rivia. So
holy shit!
There you go.
I didn't even talk about a prefixture this episode. What's going on here? Mass Effect criticism, Breath of the Wild criticism, but some things never change, and that is a Thronebreaker plug.
I'm gonna go Mass Effect Shadow Broker. And
yeah, that was going to be mine as well.
I'm gonna say it is one of the.
It's really good.
It's the best DLC I've ever played for story DLC, and the reason why is it's actually for multiple reasons. One, it plays really well. It's a very thrilling storyline. And then I think the other component that I didn't expect and I should have. It's one of those things like, duh, do you know what game series you were playing? It's Mass Effect. They know what you did, especially when they're the Shadow Broker. So I already said the moment, but like the moment when Liara, the person that I romanced, and I was trying to be like, because I thought I didn't think I was ever going to see her again. So I was like, okay, the relationship's over, I guess. So then I created a new relationship with somebody, and I tried to stay truthful, but then I was like, I somehow got into the option where I had sex with Jack randomly. So I did that.
I tried to stay truthful. But I like how you're totally putting it like the blame is nowhere near.
Oh no,
you
it's on me 100%. It's on me.
Okay.
But I just didn't know if I was ever gonna see her again. Like I didn't know if that was even gonna be an option because I was like, oh, are they just redoing the entire cast? Okay. But anyway, the fact that she knew because she's the Shadow Broker, which is awesome because then the moment where she goes, oh yeah, and then you cheat on me with this person so and so. She called her a bad something, not a bad word, but like she described her in a mean way of some kind, and I was like, whoa, holy crap! How did she know? One and two, and then duh, she's the Shadow Broker, and then two, or becomes the Shadow Broker, but she's good on information. And then two, the second fact on top of it was like, well, duh, oh my god, like wow, like it's a moment that shocked me, and I'm like, holy cow, I now have to rethink this conversation I'm having with her of being okay. I'm sorry, I there's no option to say I thought I wasn't gonna see you ever again because I was dead in a space, but like it's
yeah, sorry, I died once. I was reborn. I forgot who you are.
So the fact that it like offered like it's not only like awesome story of like what's going on with this thrilling story about the Shadow Broker, and there's been stuff leading up to who is the Shadow Broker in the first game, and then it's the combination of the emotion of the character, and all of a sudden like wow, like that's where Mass Effect has its magic, and like it did it again, and it did it in DLC where I didn't think it could do it. Like DLC, you're like, oh, it's just extra. It's not going to do anything like to really open the horizons, but it's like, holy cow, like you would think it's part of the main game. That's how like connected it was. And I was like, that's awesome.
That thunderstorm and boarding the ship, that part is
so
also
great.
awesome, by the way.
So great. I love that. I mean, there's so many sequences in that game. I mean, that DLC, that's just phenomenal. So I think, Keith, you were going to say the same thing.
I'll talk about a different piece of Mass Effect DLC.
This guy's loving it.
So, Lair of the Shadowbroker
he's
is
got
obviously
he's got to say a lot of good things to make up for the bad thing he said about Mass Effect.
Yeah, otherwise there'll be people after me. So obviously, Lair of the Shadowbroker is top draw. Thanks very much.
Very good.
Shut up and take my money level good.
Mm-hmm.
One that I think contributes well to the story, but not so much expanding the gameplay, was the Overlord DLC.
Not familiar
So
with
if you've not played this expands. And one of the good things I like about some of the stuff that happens in Mass Effect is they don't just they focus on the exposure of other people's stories. So Lair of the Shadowbroker wasn't Shepard's story, it was Liara's story. And you're just along for the ride kind of thing. Lair of the Shadow, Project Overlord was the Cerberus experiment trying to use a living person hooked into a machinery to try and control the Geth in the same way that Sovereign did. So there's some nasty, nasty shit happens in that, and they don't shy away from it. But what it does is it expands on the mythos of Cerberus as this organization that will go to any possible length to put humanity first in the galactic civilization. And I thought that was because you get some hints about how nefarious Cerberus is in the first game, but you never really kind of see it with your own eyes. You're there after the fact, and you're reading journal entries, and you're picking up data pads to read about the horrible shit that they did. Whereas in that, you're actually there, and you're seeing it for yourself. And then you can choose at the end of that to either kill the scientists and stop them from and stop their experiments, or you can say, right, you work for me now, and you're taking over the experiment from Cerberus because you're going to use what they were doing there. It's basically torturing this poor bastard to help the fight against the Reapers. So I'd throw that out there as a piece of quality story DLC as well. How you get about the world and that weird hover tank thing is not so great, but actually going into Mass Effect 2 and playing that piece of DLC, thinking, yeah, okay, here's a reason to hate Cerberus.
And
that's
also,
my Paragon playthrough, obviously.
Yeah, right. And also add to like the war effort into Mass Effect 3. Like they plant so many seeds in Mass Effect 1 that actually like do come to fruition. Like, you know, the Shadow Broker. Obviously they planted those seeds, and then later they're like, hey, let's make a Shadow Broker DLC type of thing. Like, but I like how lots of those things are connected, and some of the seeds that they plant do come to fruition later in the game. And
it goes back to my point about planning, because they've obviously had all of these ideas and then thought we can't possibly, or they could have possibly put it all in the main game, but then where would the recurrent use spending be?
I will say though, once I get the PlayStation 5, it's been long enough. Has it been long enough, right? It's been long enough since I've played Mass Effect that I'm looking forward to that Legendary Edition. But until the PlayStation 5, I cannot play it. And I've only ever played the Shadow Broker DLC. So I think I have a lot to look forward to. And yeah, good stuff all around with Mass Effect. I will not disagree with that.
Say anything bad?
No, it's a great. It's not as high on my list of like amazing games, but I still love it. Like Mass Effect 2 is such a great game.
Should
and on that note,
yeah, on that note,
yeah, it is. Breath of the Wild, Zelda's great. Yakuza is also Yakuza. It's all great. Some would say better maybe than the Mass Effect series.
Some
People would. Some people would say that.
I'm getting there, Evan. I'm still on 4, but I'm almost there.